The forest is silent. Wind threads through the pines, and the world feels untouched, as if time itself has stepped aside. You stand alone, with nothing but the clothes on your back. No lighter, no knife, no phone. Just the raw wilderness, endless and indifferent. Could you survive? For most people today, that question sparks panic. But for Native American tribes across North America, it was never a question. It was a way of life. They carried everything they needed to live, move, and thrive. Not in heavy backpacks or military gear, but in something far more powerful. Knowledge, ingenuity, and a few carefully chosen tools that fit into what we now call their hidden survival kit. Imagine a pouch of leather or woven bark, small enough to hang at the waist, light enough to run with, yet powerful enough to sustain life through storm, hunger, and winter. Inside were not random items, but precision-selected tools born of thousands of years of testing, failure, and adaptation. Flint and bow drills for fire, bone and obsidian for cutting, fibers twisted into rope strong enough to build shelter or catch food, medicinal herbs wrapped in bark, each one a cure known only to those who'd listened long enough to the land. To modernize, it seems primitive, but what you're about to see is engineering disguised as simplicity. Every piece inside that kit, every spark, blade, and thread, reveals a deep relationship with the natural world. This wasn't survivalism for sport. It was a philosophy, one that blended science, spirituality, and respect for balance. Before we continue, subscribe, because every day we uncover another forgotten system, ingenious technologies that once allowed humanity to live in harmony with the earth. Now, let's open the pouch and discover what lay inside the hidden Native American survival kit, the original blueprint for mastering the wild. Imagine being dropped into the wilderness 5 centuries ago. No compass, no fire starter, no map. The trees whisper in languages you don't yet understand. The rivers carry both promise and peril. What would you take? What would you trust to keep you alive? Archaeologists and historians have long searched for answers to that question. Buried in caves, wrapped in hides, or passed down through oral tradition, traces of what could be called a Native American survival kit have been found. Not a bag of gadgets, but a compact system of essentials designed to meet every human need: warmth, shelter, water, food, and healing. To the untrained eye, it might look unremarkable. A bundle of leather cords, stone flakes, dried roots, and small pouches of ash or powder. But each item carried purpose born of experience. Flint chips weren't just for cutting. They were sparks waiting to happen. Bone needles and sinew threads could repair clothing or seal a wound. A hollow reed might serve as both a straw for drinking from shallow creeks and a tube for blowing oxygen into embers to revive fire. Some kits even included sacred talismans, feathers, carved stones, or painted shells, reminders that survival was not only physical, but spiritual. Because to face nature unprepared wasn't simply dangerous, it was disrespectful. These survival kits were not improvised. They were perfected through centuries of observation, a portable echo of the environment itself. Every item spoke of adaptation, intelligence, and balance between need and restraint. It wasn't about having more. It was about knowing enough. Inside that small bundle was everything necessary for life, and nothing that wasn't. At the heart of every Native American survival kit lay the foundation of life itself: fire, water, shelter, and tools. These weren't just items. They were extensions of the human hand, designed to transform the wilderness into home. Fire came first. In most regions, it began with flint and steel, or, more traditionally, a bow drill set. A spindle of cedar or willow, spun against a wooden base until smoke curled up from friction. Around it, they carried dried moss, cattail fluff, or shredded bark to catch the ember. One spark, and warmth, safety, and life were reborn. To them, fire wasn't just heat. It was a living spirit that demanded care. Water came next, the most vital and elusive resource. Their kits often included tools for both finding and purifying it. Hollow reeds were used for sipping from shallow pools, while charcoal, sand, and pebbles layered inside birch bark cones acted as natural filters. In colder climates, they used heated stones dropped into birch bark containers to boil and disinfect. To modern survivalists, it sounds advanced. To them, it was simply common sense. For shelter and repair, bone knives and stone scrapers shaped branches into frames, while fibers from yucca, cedar bark, or stinging nettle were twisted into strong, versatile cordage. That rope could build a lean-to, set a snare, or mend a broken tool. Proof that in the wild, strength came from what you could create, not what you carried. Each piece of the kit worked in harmony, compact, efficient, and endlessly useful. There were no redundancies, no wasted weight. Every spark, strand, and drop served a purpose. Survival wasn't only about enduring the wilderness. It was about living with it. Inside the Native American survival kit lay the means to hunt, forage, and heal. The tools that transformed a harsh landscape into a home. For food, the kit carried small, precise instruments. Lightweight stone arrowheads or bone-tipped darts could be quickly fashioned into projectiles for birds or rabbits. Sinew cords, stripped from animal tendons, became both bowstrings and snare lines. Tiny pouches often held seeds or ground herbs that served as bait, scent markers, or even emergency nutrition. Nothing was wasted, and nothing was carried without purpose. Foraging tools were equally vital. A carved wooden digging stick could unearth roots or tubers hidden beneath frozen soil. A small hide pouch might carry dried berries or nuts gathered along the way. High-energy food that lasted through long journeys. Knowledge of edible plants was the true weapon. Understanding which leaves soothed hunger and which could kill with a single bite. And then came the medicine chest, nature's own pharmacy, compacted into a few precious ingredients. Crushed willow bark for pain, yarrow leaves to stop bleeding, cedar for purification, and sage for cleansing both body and spirit. Ash and clay were carried to treat insect bites or stomach illness. Wrapped carefully in bark or hide, these remedies spoke of a science rooted in respect. Each cure memorized through generations of trial, success, and sacred trust. Together, these items formed a system: sustenance, health, and renewal, bound by knowledge of the land. It wasn't luck that kept them alive. It was understanding. To carry this kit was to carry centuries of wisdom, a balance between body, earth, and spirit that modern survival still strives to match. Inside the Native American survival kit, nothing was ever permanent. Everything was adaptable. The wilderness demanded change, and the people who lived by its laws mastered the art of turning whatever they found into what they needed. This philosophy of flexibility was the soul of their survival. Bone and stone were their steel and plastic, light, durable, and endlessly repurposable. A sharp flake of obsidian could cut through hide with surgical precision. A deer's rib, polished smooth, became a scraper for cleaning hides or shaping wood. From a single broken arrow, they could craft a fish hook, a sewing needle, or a tool for engraving bone. Every object carried potential. Nothing was ever just one thing. Cordage, the lifeline of every kit, was made from the fibers of plants like yucca, milkweed, or cedar bark. Twisted and braided, it became rope for binding shelters, lashing tools, or setting traps. Its strength rivaled modern nylon, and its creation was an act of patience. Strands rolled against the thigh, spun until they sang with tension. Even their containers were feats of ingenuity. Bark, animal bladders, and woven reeds formed watertight vessels. Birch bark sheets, stitched with spruce root, became baskets that could carry hot stones and boiling water without burning. When something broke, they didn't discard it. They mended it. Bone awls stitched torn moccasins. Sinew threads patched tears. And resin from pine trees sealed cracks in wood or pottery. To modernize, it was primitive, but in truth, it was design perfected. Portable technology sculpted by need, knowledge, and resourcefulness. Their mastery wasn't in what they owned, but in what they could become with what they had. That was the essence of true preparedness, the kind that survives every age. Among all the tools in the Native American survival kit, none held more power or reverence than fire. It was light in the darkness, warmth in the snow, and safety against the unseen. To lose it meant danger. To keep it meant life. That's why every traveler, hunter, and healer carried the knowledge and tools to make fire wherever they went. The most common method was the bow drill, a simple yet ingenious system of wood, string, and patience. The spindle was spun against a wooden base using a bow of curved willow and a cord of sinew or plant fiber. With steady rhythm and speed, friction turned to heat, and heat to ember. That tiny coal, cradled in dry moss or shredded bark, became the heartbeat of camp. In damp weather, they turned to flint and pyrite. A single strike sent sparks flying, caught carefully in a nest of cattail fluff or cedar shavings. Some carried small pouches of charred cloth or fungus, nature's tinder that ignited at the faintest spark. Even ashes from previous fires were saved, used to dry new fuel or shield embers overnight. But fire was more than a tool. It was sacred. Many tribes believed its spirit connected them to ancestors and the elements. Flames were never wasted. They were fed with gratitude. The first spark of the day often came with a whisper of thanks, a reminder that warmth was a gift, not a guarantee. The native survival kit wasn't just about kindling flames. It was about protecting them. Each ember represented continuity, resilience, and life itself. To master fire was to master balance, between power and respect, between the raw and the refined, the eternal dance that defined survival. No matter how well someone could hunt or build fire, without water, survival ended quickly. That's why every Native American survival kit carried the means and the knowledge to find and purify it. They understood that water wasn't only a drink. It was a living current, one that could sustain or destroy, depending on how it was approached. Their first tool was awareness. The sound of frogs at dusk, the flight paths of birds, or the sweetness in air carried on a breeze, all hinted at water nearby. They could read the shape of land like a map, lush vegetation in a dry valley, animal tracks converging toward a point, or a low fog at dawn signaling a nearby stream. Once found, the water was never taken recklessly. They purified it using the land's own chemistry. Charcoal from the fire pit became a natural filter, absorbing impurities. Pebbles, sand, and moss were layered inside birch bark cones or hollowed wood to strain debris. In cold regions, stones heated in fire were dropped into bark bowls to bring the water to a boil, sterilizing it without metal. Plants also offered hidden sources. Cacti, grapevines, and certain tree roots held moisture that could be safely squeezed or drained. Snow and ice, melted slowly by fire-warmed stones, provided clean hydration without shocking the body. Each method reflected patience and respect, taking only what was needed, always leaving the source unharmed. Water, to them, was not conquered but befriended. It was both the most fragile and most sacred element, one that reminded them that survival wasn't just about finding life, but about keeping the balance that allowed it to flow. For Native Americans, the wilderness was never empty. It was a vast pantry, stocked with wisdom. Every tree, riverbank, and meadow offered something to eat, if you knew where to look. The survival kit, though small, held the knowledge and tools to unlock that abundance. Proof that true security came not from hoarding, but from understanding. A simple digging stick, hardened in fire, was one of the most versatile tools. It unearthed cattail roots rich in starch, prairie turnips filled with nutrients, and burdock roots prized for endurance. Nets made from plant fibers caught fish in streams, while snares crafted from sinew trapped rabbits or grouse. Feather-light dart tips and stone arrowheads, carried in small leather pouches, turned the quiet forest into a reliable hunting ground. But gathering was as vital as hunting. The kit often contained small hide or bark pouches for berries, nuts, and seeds, each one serving as both food and medicine. Acorns were soaked to remove bitterness and ground into flour. Pine nuts offered fat and protein. Even tree sap became sugar and glue in one. Knowledge of edible plants was the true treasure. They knew which leaves could be boiled into tea for energy, which roots healed, and which berries warned of poison by their silence in birdsong. Foraging wasn't guesswork. It was reading a living book, each plant a line of survival poetry written by the earth herself. Nothing was taken without thanks. Each harvest came with a word or gesture of gratitude, a sacred exchange between the human and the wild. In their hands, food was never scarce. It was earned through awareness. And that awareness, not the tools themselves, was the real secret inside the survival kit. Inside the Native American survival kit, alongside fire tools and foraging gear, lay something far more sacred: the elements of healing. Survival wasn't just about enduring hunger or cold. It was about maintaining balance between body, spirit, and the land. The medicine portion of the kit reflected that philosophy, holding remedies for nearly every wound, sickness, and strain that life in the wild could bring. Small pouches of bark, leaves, and roots were carefully wrapped in hide or birch bark. Each carried the knowledge of generations. Willow bark, ground into powder, eased pain and fever, nature's original aspirin. Crushed yarrow sealed wounds and stopped bleeding. Sweetgrass and cedar, when burned, cleansed both the air and the spirit, protecting from sickness believed to be carried by imbalance or ill energy. Plantain leaves soothed burns and insect stings, while sage was chewed to settle the stomach, or brewed as a tonic for purification. Pine resin served as both antiseptic and adhesive, sealing cuts or cracks in tools. Even charcoal from the fire had healing purpose. Mixed with water, it eased stomach ailments or drew toxins from wounds. Every remedy had dual meaning: physical and spiritual. Illness was not seen as random misfortune, but as a sign of disharmony with nature. Healing, therefore, meant restoring that harmony. Medicine men and women were the keepers of this sacred science, teaching that every cure required gratitude, an offering to the plant, the fire, or the earth. To carry these medicines was to carry memory, the record of a people who turned the wild into a pharmacy, through respect, observation, and care. It was more than a survival kit. It was a covenant, a promise between humanity and nature that life, if honored, would always find a way to heal itself. What made the Native American survival kit extraordinary wasn't just what it contained, it was the philosophy behind it. Every item represented a principle: preparedness, adaptability, and balance. In their world, survival wasn't about carrying everything you might need, it was about knowing that nature already provided it. The kit was merely a reminder of how to live in harmony with that truth. Each piece served multiple purposes. A knife could carve wood, clean fish, or shape bone. Cordage tied shelters, bound wounds, or became snares. The same plant that offered food might also provide medicine. Nothing existed in isolation. Every tool was part of a living system that reflected the world itself, interconnected, efficient, and humble. This was minimalism long before the word existed. They didn't travel light to test endurance. They did it to stay free. The less they carried, the more they could move, adapt, and listen to the land. True security came not from possessions, but from knowledge. The understanding that nature's abundance made excess unnecessary. Preparedness to them wasn't fear-based stockpiling. It was trust. Trust in skill, awareness, and the continuity of the Earth's cycles. It meant knowing how to read the weather, when to travel, and where to find shelter even in a landscape that others might call barren. Their survival kits weren't about self-reliance alone. They were symbols of connection. To carry one was to carry centuries of learning, condensed into simplicity. In that simplicity lies a timeless lesson. Survival is not about what you have, it's about what you understand. The lighter the load, the stronger the bond between human and Earth. A truth that made every step forward not a struggle, but a partnership with life itself. Though centuries have passed, the spirit of the Native American survival kit still breathes through modern hands. In every bushcraft knife, every fire steel, and every minimalist backpack carried into the wild. What we call survival gear today was once living knowledge, shaped by those who needed nothing more than what the Earth freely offered. Modern survivalists now study what tribes once practiced daily: fire by friction, cordage from plants, medicines from roots, and the silent reading of weather and wind. The genius of these ancient systems lies not just in function, but in philosophy. Each tool carried intention, balance, humility, and respect for the resources that sustained life. Nothing in the kit was wasted, and nothing was owned. It was borrowed from nature for survival until it was returned. The same lessons guide a new generation seeking reconnection. Outdoor educators, environmentalists, and survival experts have begun reviving these methods, not as relics, but as solutions for modern disconnection. In an age where technology promises control, these ancient kits remind us that real security comes from understanding, not possession. Every spark from a flint, every sip of filtered water, every handmade knot tells the same story. That we once lived in partnership with the world, not apart from it. The hidden survival kit wasn't merely a collection of tools. It was a philosophy of living light, thinking deeply, and acting with reverence. Its legacy endures wherever someone kneels to strike a spark, gather herbs, or give thanks before a meal drawn from the land. As the ember fades and the forest falls silent, one truth remains. Survival was never about the tools. It was about the understanding behind them. Every flint spark, every woven cord, every herb pressed into the palm spoke of a deeper intelligence. The quiet agreement between human and earth that made life possible. The hidden Native American survival kit wasn't just a pouch of tools. It was a philosophy carried in the heart, a belief that simplicity, awareness, and respect could overcome any wilderness. The people who built it didn't see themselves as conquerors of the land. They were its students, learning how to live in rhythm with every storm, river, and flame. Today, we live surrounded by convenience. Yet, we grow farther from the balance they mastered. Their kit teaches a truth we've almost forgotten, that survival begins not with gear, but with gratitude. To observe, to adapt, to listen. The smallest detail, the direction of smoke, the texture of bark, the silence before rain, still carries the wisdom of those who once lived by these signs. So before you scroll past or switch off, Take one lesson from this legacy. You already carry a version of that kit within you. Your instincts, your awareness, your respect for the world around you. They're still there, waiting to be awakened. Subscribe now, because every day we open another forgotten pouch of knowledge, revealing not just the tools that built civilizations, but the mindset that sustained them. The hidden survival kit wasn't lost. It's waiting for us to remember. And when we do, we won't just survive this world. We'll finally learn how to belong to it again.